investments up there in Boston. Let's get back down to Washington, D.C. Lots of stuff coming out of Washington, D.C., which is pretty much a daily occurrence these days. Nathan Dean, senior policy analyst at Bloomberg Intelligence. He's down there in D.C. in the muck. Nathan, I'm looking at Bitcoin here at 119,000 bucks here. There's something called a crypto week in D.C. What's the Trump administration policy regarding crypto, and why is this week important?
Yeah, so this is Crypto Week from the House of Representatives because they're going to vote on 3 separate bills that deals with crypto. The most important to us right now is called the Genius Act. This is a stablecoin bill, and once the House votes on it, which we think will come probably this evening around 7:30, it will become law because the Senate already passed it. So allow firms like Circle to go forth and actually have a regulatory framework and be able to operate knowing what the rules of the road are. Now, there's another bill out there called the Clarity Act. Now, this is broader, so if you're a Bitcoin investor, this is the one you should be paying attention to. And this one is going to most likely pass the House probably tomorrow, potentially could get pushed back a little bit. But the challenge with the Clarity Act is that, yes, it is going to provide a regulatory framework for companies like Coinbase and Robinhood, but it's going to need more time to cook. There isn't agreement on the Senate Democratic side. It hasn't passed the Senate. And so come September, after the August recess, we think the senators will come back and they'll actually just look at it from their own perspective. And I don't think this is going to have any chance of passage until early next year.
Nathan, talk more about the Bitcoin reaction to all this, because we saw it go, above 120,000. Now it's at 118,000, down 1%. It's kind of back and forth. Dig more into that for us.
Yeah, so a lot of the Bitcoin investors want institutional adoption of crypto, and that would come through the Clarity Act. The Genius Act, think of that as the first step because it's stablecoins only, so that's allowing a taste. I mean, we heard on many bank earnings calls this week that many banks are now considering stablecoins, and so that is beginning the stages of institutional adoption. But the Clarity Act is really the key thing here because the SEC can only do so much because they have authority over securities, and Bitcoin is a commodity. And the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, as of yet, does not have authority to oversee Bitcoin. So Bitcoin and Ethereum, a lot of these currencies that the crypto world wants to invest in, it's sort of outside of this regulatory framework. So for that institutional adoption, you need the Clarity Act. And so that's where, if you're looking at Bitcoin in particular, clarity, not genius, is what you should be paying attention to.
Nathan, what are your clients asking you about this time? Because there's so much going on in D.C., and you're one of the few folks out there that really has the finger on the pulse. What are they asking you these days?
Well, obviously, there's been a lot of discussion now that the One Big Beautiful Bill is done. What's coming next? And we would say is it's deregulation. Because if you go back to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent's 3 pillars of economic growth, tariffs, taxes, and deregulation. Taxes are pretty much done. Now we're in the implementation phase. Tariffs, obviously, August 1st is the big deadline that's coming up. A lot of questions on, is it going to be extended? It's hard to say. It's President Trump's decision, and his aides have been saying no, but history suggests, yes, that it will be extended. But then they come with this other idea of deregulation. And for the first half of this year, the Senate has been spending a lot of time confirming leadership. For example, Governor of Fed Michelle Bowman, who's now the Fed Vice Chair of Supervision. Now these agencies are actually going forth and producing these proposals on deregulation. So from a stock perspective, a lot of sentiment on deregulation, but between now and 2027, you're going to see the fruits of deregulation, begin to see it impact the company's bottom lines.
All right. So I'm going to tie in a couple of these things. So you mentioned the president. Talk about, and then we'll get into crypto. So talk about his influence on crypto and how that's been affecting as well.
Well, it's been almost critical because if you look at how it's played out this week, is the House said, look, we've got Crypto Week, and Crypto Week actually turned out to be somewhat of a mess because there were several members of the House Freedom Caucus that said, look, I'm not going to vote for this Genius Act for a variety of reasons. Now, one, they wanted to package 3 bills together and send it to the Senate as a way to jam up the Senate. Usually that's not what happens, and that's what happened here is that they had to split it up and move individually. But you're also seeing pushback on this idea of a central bank digital currency. This is one of those 3 bills. And President Trump several times this week had to step in and say, look, come to the White House. We're going to figure this out because I want the Genius Act on my desk this week. Yep. And ultimately is provide that political capital to move these bills forward.
I mean, Nathan's a perfectly nice guy, Lisa. But he's got to deal with all this D.C. stuff all the time. I mean,
it's a tough job.
He went to Purdue, University of Chicago, MBA, did a little creative writing at Stanford, and he's a perfectly nice guy, but he's got to deal with this Washington, D.C. stuff all the time. And thankfully, he makes all the sense in the world for people like us. This is